Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm still kind of picking away at this Ibanez gem project. I'm not sure if this will be a very long video today because I am pressed for a little bit of time during the holidays, but I think I'm going to turn my attention to the body today. I've made plenty of progress on the neck, but I am still waiting on a couple of parts. And there's something that I've definitely noticed needs to be addressed in the body, and it's these two bridge studs here. They actually have cracks that extend up into the wood on both sides of the stud actually. And while it's probably okay, I want to try to address that and replace a little bit of wood in here if possible. And also, there is another issue that I want to tell you about. So the issue is that the Ibanez gem studs are quite a fine thread. I feel like they're probably 8mm studs, but I went to the hardware store and I bought an M8 1.0 bolt, and it does not thread in there, so it's even finer than the finest thread available at my hardware store. I've looked online and I've seen a few replacement studs, but they go for like 20 bucks. And I've already bought a Floyd Rose replacement for this body because I don't have the original bridge parts. And the Floyd Rose is a lot cheaper and a lot more plentiful than the Ibanez bridge. So I think the way that I'm going to attack these, since I don't have the original bolt or anything else that will thread in there, I think I'm going to tap these for a different size bolt and try to pull them out. Alright, this could go horribly wrong, but I'm going to try to tap the threads in the existing bushings to a different size, and then I'll use an existing bolt that I have to pull them out. Alright, well that works well enough, but I did discover that the hole for this particular bridge post is drilled at a drastic angle, and I don't know if that's because the wood is broken underneath or if it was drilled that way originally, and that's just not right. So hopefully the other one's a little bit better, but I'm gonna have to fix that hole too. Okay, that one's in a little better shape, but I still have some repair to do to each one of them. So the repair of this area is actually going to be a two-step process for me. I'm going to go ahead and fill these holes. I've got some dowel rods to do that. I just need to drill them out to the proper size. Then when I glue those in, I'm going to route out a piece of wood on the top of the posts here and replace it with a new solid piece of wood. All the wood, the dowels, and everything I'm using are going to be poplar. Okay, I drilled these out to 7/16. I wasn't really happy with the way they cleaned up at 7/16, so I did take them up to a 1/2 inch, and I got a bunch of split out on this one over here. And that's the one that looked like it had the worst crack because the crack extended up into the finish and into the pocket here. And of course, it split everything out the back of this hole. So I'm going to have to replace quite a bit of wood on this one. On this one, I'm just going to go ahead and pound in a dowel rod. I will go ahead and dowel this one, but it'll require a little bit more extensive work when I'm done. We're just gluing in some 1/2 inch poplar dowels into these holes. Let those sit for a while, then I'll get to routing some of the other wood out. So here you can see why I had additional work to do even after doweling, and I had to do multiple stages. I'll spare you the sound of my router, but the first step was to route out the ledge where the bridge sits. And I'm only taking out wood from inside the boundary of the tremolo cavity. I then also removed the taller, thin piece of wood between the pickup cavity and tremolo cavity due to significant cracks. And I glued in 2 pieces of wood, one to replace the first part that I routed out, and then one to replace the boundary between the humbucker cavity and bridge cavity. I used some small C-clamps to hold everything together while the glue dried for each piece, and once everything was dry, I removed the clamps and restored the shape of the pickup cavity with my router. The final step was to route out all the split wood under the treble side bridge post and replace it. I didn't have one large piece of poplar to replace it all at once, so I stitched everything together with multiple pieces. And you can see that while the original cavity shielding was damaged by the repairs, it was significantly lacking anyway, so I repainted the entire cavity with my homebrew shielding paint. I also covered my repairs with some gloss black paint, and none of that will really show since it's covered by the pickguard, tremolo, or backplate, but by painting these areas black, it actually makes sure that none of the original white paint will peek out from behind the tremolo when you look at the guitar from the front. Now I don't have the posts drilled yet, but that's because I'm going to be using a supported plate. This is what the plate looks like, It's kind of a supported set of bushings that will help strengthen this area that's already been compromised. And in terms of the tremolo, I'm going with a Wilkinson M series tremolo. It's what I've been using for all my measurements as I've redone all this work in here. It's a chrome tremolo with a couple of different contrasts on the post. It's got satin saddles and black hardware. So I like the contrast, and it fits in here just great, and it looks like it belongs there. It looks just as good as that original Ibanez tremolo would have. Now again, I'm not using the bushings that came with this, and I'm not using the original nut, and I'll talk more about that when we get further along on the neck. But anyway, it's a nice looking set. It comes in a nice box and looks like really good quality for the price. And they of course are not a sponsor or anything, but I do like the set and the deal that I got on Amazon. And if you want to see the deal that I got on Amazon, feel free to visit my Amazon links in the description. So the last step in this body repair, besides drilling those bridge holes, which I still need to do, is to just mask the repairs that have been done to this body, and also, you know, some of the damage that pre-existed. So what I did was, on the front of this body, I kind of did a little stitches, sort of a Frankenstein theme, where I drew in some stitches, and I'll get a close-up of this for you just to show you a little bit better. But I drew in some stitches to cover especially this damaged area where that crack was that I had to repair in the first episode. On the back, I took a little bit different strategy because this thing had been drug across like pavement or the floor or something, and it had lots of like little scratches, so I kind of took a little bit of a road rash theme to it. So I've got some semi-interesting things going on here. I don't love this as much as I like the stitches on the front, but I think they look pretty good. I did these in acrylic gloss paint, and I don't know if I necessarily recommend that because I think it's a little bit weak in terms of adhesion. I think if I had to do it over again, I'd probably use nail polish paint because it seems to hold a little bit better, even though it does seem to sort of chip off as well. So I don't know, there's no perfect solution here other than a complete repaint, but this is good enough to hide everything. There was a pretty significant chunk taken out over here, which is why that little blotch is there. But overall, I think it looks pretty uniform, and I really especially love the front of it, like I said. And oh, by the way, I also did the little cavity covers for the back as well because they had some scratches on them as well. All right, y'all, and just real quick, I want to talk about the pickguard that I've now reassembled and rewired. And all I did on this, I did two upgrades. I upgraded the pots and I upgraded the switch. I've got the original humbuckers in place. I was able to determine which one of these was the bridge and which one was the neck. All I did with that is I measured out the resistance, the passive resistance of each one, and the one with the more passive resistance, the higher passive resistance, is the bridge pickup. These two humbuckers are also labeled INF3 and INF4, and you got to figure that the 4 is the bridge pickup because it's a higher number. Each one of these two humbuckers came with 3 wires. There was a black, a red, and a white. Whenever you see that, it's almost always the case that the white is the hot, the black is the ground, and the red is the tap. And measuring these things out with an ohm meter, that was indeed the case. On the back here, I've used a pair of Fleor pots. These are 500K pots, and that was the original value. But the pots that were used in this were a little bit cheaper model, so I decided to go ahead and upgrade. It's got a .022 microfarad cap, which is pretty normal for a humbucker guitar. And the interesting thing about the wiring setup, which I found on guitarelectronics.com, I always mention that site, but if you want the wiring diagram that I use for this guitar, it's going to be there. At any rate, the interesting thing is that in positions 1 and 5 of the switch, 1 being the neck humbucker and 5 being the bridge humbucker, the humbuckers are full. They're complete and using both coils. In position 3, you're only operating off the center or middle pickup. But in positions 2 and 4, you're operating off of a tapped pickup and the middle pickup. So 2 would be a tapped neck pickup and the middle pickup, and 4 is the tapped bridge pickup and the middle pickup. So you get some hum canceling in those positions too, but it sounds a little bit like 2 single coils instead of a humbucker. So kind of a Strat-like sound on those 2 positions of the switch. Albeit a pretty hot one because this humbucker measures out at over 15K and this one is I think 12K or something in that range. At any rate, I've got everything wired up here except for the jack, and I think that one will come later, but this is a really good start. I'm glad to have this loaded pickguard all done. All right, y'all. Well, I just want to say Happy New Year, and we continue to inch closer to being done with this thing, but I still obviously have a lot of work to do left on the neck, and I think the bridge setup is also going to be challenging. But things continue to look pretty good on this thing. Just remember that if you want to talk to me and other like-minded folks, you can join the Hacks Guitar Hobby group on Facebook. Also, as always, be sure to check out my Amazon links. Thanks for all the likes and the comments. I really appreciate the subscriptions, and I'll see you guys next time.